Go.
Hi, it's Vicky, and we're going to be in the garden at Pinehurst today, and we happen to be in my garden today. And so I'm going to show you some issues that I have. Maybe you have the same ones, and we'll talk about them. In our garden, I grow Swiss chard, lettuce. I've got parsley, cilantro, and beets in my raised beds. I really like the raised beds because the soil in it is so nice because I've used a raised bed mix, and they're easy to control. You can get a lot of food in a little area. And I'm going to start by talking about Swiss chard. And you might have had this in your garden, and it would be with any kind of a leafy thing. Could be lettuce or spinach or anything like that. And we have some bugs that come in and want to eat with us. So I try to be a little bit more natural and organic and about how I control that. And there are some products that you can use. One of the products that you can use is spinosad soap. It's organic, but you have to wait so many days after you spray to harvest. Well, I'm harvesting every day, so I don't want to have to do that. So I go a more natural way. And when I first got going here, I had a real problem with earwigs, and I probably might still. But I would find them down in the heart of the plants. And what I did was, and I really like this, I used diatomaceous earth. And this is ground up seashell-like stuff. And it is not a chemical, but just ground up seashells. And what you do is you take it down in the bottom. This is a squirt tube, and it works really good, and I just puff it in there. It doesn't take very much. But what happens is when those insects crawl across that, any insect, it just slices up their body and they kind of bleed to death. So this would be really good for slugs too. If this was on the ground in my yard, it probably would have a lot of slugs in it. And still, they could climb up the box. And here I've got a leaf that's laying down on the ground, so they can just hitchhike up into my box on that leaf. So I try to keep those from growing down there. I've got something that eats at night, and it's putting holes in it. This right here, see this light area? That's a leaf miner. And so what I want to do there is, instead of spray this, I find that on a leaf and I just tear that off, and I get it all and I take it off and I get rid of it. I don't throw it on the ground, but I take it to the dumpster or down the garbage disposal and get rid of that, because I don't want that to spread. And that's how I can control leaf miner pretty good on this, is just come out, and when I see it, I cut it off. The other thing too is, when I am harvesting, some of these have a lot of holes in them. I could still eat that, but I'm probably going to sacrifice that one. And let me get a bigger one that has some. Okay, here's a nice big one. But I used to, when I looked down in here, I would see earwigs around there, and using the diatomaceous earth, I don't have that problem anymore. Okay, so this is a piece. I'm going to take off the leaf miner, and see, it here is in just a little spot, but I want to get rid of that, and I don't really want to eat leaf miners. The other big bugs are long gone, but I would probably clean this up a little bit and still use this, because it's not like it has a chemical on it. It's just a bug that came and shared my breakfast with me, and so I would go ahead and eat that. So you can do that. Bugs are not really bad, but then I come along and I find something that's really bad, and I would cut that completely out and just get rid of that if it's too eaten up. But you can share your food with bugs. So the other thing too is, these I planted from plants, and they're all big. And then back here I planted a row of them. And so what you do, it's really hard to space them right when they're in a row. So when they're in a row, what you can do is as they get, as you harvest them, just take the whole plant out and you end up thinning it out. So I planted the big plants, the already going plants for now, and then these smaller plants will come on a little bit later. And here I've got some romaine lettuce, and the same thing. When you plant it, it's really hard to space it enough that it forms a nice head. So when I harvest it, I just go out and thin it out as I eat it, use the product. But and you can just keep it out, keep it cleaned up. And the earwigs kind of like that too, but the diatomaceous earth took right good care of them. And up in this other box, I've got parsley, and parsley is pretty tough because I haven't seen one thing eating parsley at all, and there's no leaf miner on that. So this has been really good to harvest. This I planted from seed from plants in this row. There's only about 3 plants here, and look how big they are. And then for later harvest, I planted them in a row, and so they will come on a little bit later if these get too big. In the next row, I've got cilantro, and the thing about cilantro is you don't want to let it go to seed. So I just come out, and anything that's going to go to seed, I keep that picked off. You can still eat that. It's very good, but maybe as you're harvesting it, take the parts that are the tops that are going to seed. See, here's one that is open clear up, and I'm going to get rid of that. I do know too that when cilantro goes to seed, you're going to have a lot of cilantro. So you might want to not let it go to seed for that reason also. But I'm going to just harvest all that, and then that can be used right away. Then I have beets, and something loves the beets here. I'm going to put this on here. And you'll see that this end of my box has got more of a bug issue than the other end. And this could be earwigs, it could be slugs, but I'm not too concerned about that because I'm going to let these grow for the beets themselves. But on the other end, where we don't have so many issues with bugs, I use these as greens. And so this one has leaf miner, so I'm going to get rid of it. Anytime you see leaf miner, get rid of it because it can get kind of out of control for you. But here, I would just go in and thin these out, but I would just take the whole plant out so that I end up like, it has a little bead on it, but I'm going to leave, I've just given the other 2 by it a little bit more space to grow. But it's important just to kind of watch and see what's bugging your garden. The nighttime chewers are probably worms or caterpillars, and also slugs come out at night, and so do earwigs. But it's not so much identifying exactly what bug or what worm is in your product as much as just the same control would work for anything. And if you're not real open-minded about sharing your veggies with the bugs, there are a couple other things. Like I said, I use the diatomaceous earth down around the roots because that's where I've seen the earwigs, and I was mainly after the earwigs with that. There's also, if I wasn't quite being, this is also an organic product, but the spinosad soap that we talked about, like on beets, if you're not harvesting the greens and you're just going for the beets, you could put the spinosad on. I could spray those. And So this is insecticidal soap with spinosad in it. Because I think it tells you on the bottle how long you have to wait, maybe 5 days or something, 3 to 5 days. But you want to always read the directions on the bottle. The other thing we've got is neem oil, and this is totally organic. I don't know if you have to wait after this is sprayed. This is just an oil, and you could use that on there too. But this is a really good organic pesticide, is neem oil. It also controls diseases and fungus and things like that. So it's multi-usable. One of our go-to insecticides is triple action. And this has neem oil in it also. And it has pyrethrins, which is a really, that's derived from chrysanthemums and is more of a natural insecticide. But this product is an insecticide, a fungicide, and a miticide. So that's really, really a good product. This one is quick acting and doesn't last a long time on your plants. But this would be a good one to use too in the garden. This is great for aphids. In fact, triple action will probably kill about any insect in any life stage in your garden. So that's a go-to, but works great on aphids. You can put this on flowers or vegetables. This also works on fungus gnats in your house, if you have them on your flowers. Now, we also have granular insect control that you can use, and this is around the base. If I was going to use this in my garden, I would put it around the base, but not in the box. So I would go around the outside of it with this. But you can use this. It's registered to use on crops. It tells you how many days after you apply this to harvest. But that is a good one too. That's good for ground problems, like something that's chewing on your roots too. Slugs. This is slug gnats. And slugs in my yard, I have a real problem with. They're in my grass, and at night they come out of the grass and go to my flowers. But this I would also, and have, put this around the base of my boxes because they have to crawl through that and crawl up the box to get in there. So that's a good one. It's pretty long lasting, and that's good. You know, in our garden, what we do for, we have my boxes that are mainly just leafy things. Then we have potatoes, some tomato plants. This is a bush zucchini, and if you've never tried this is one we grow. It's called Raven. And see how that's a bush instead of a vine? All your fruit is just going to be right down in the base of there. It doesn't take up so much room. And it's a really nice plant if you like zucchini. So that's good. Tomato plants, we have some cucumbers back here growing and some squash. And if we use lots of onions, so we have lots of onions. And our onions are laying down because we sharecropped the onions with the peas, and the peas lasted so long that the onions kind of suffered in the meantime, but they're starting to recoup. But in most of our garden, we don't have to use insecticides. So because if you have something chewing on a plant, a leaf, you can just remove that leaf or use a more natural product on it. And to control weeds in our garden, we use this high yield. It's a weed and grass preventer. It's Treflan, and it is the only weed preventer. It doesn't let any weed seed germinate, and it is the only one that's registered for a vegetable garden. But you can we put it on underneath our mulch in the garden, or you can apply it in the spring, and then we don't have, It's not foolproof. I mean, we still come out and hand weed, but it really cuts down on letting any of that weed seed germinate. And to mulch, a great mulch to use, and what I've used here, is grass clippings. And we just put on a thin layer every once in a while. If you put it on too thick, it will get stinky. We make sure that we haven't used a herbicide on our grass, because you don't want to put that in your garden. And also, it's a lot of nitrogen coming. I mean, we fertilized, and the grass puts a lot of nitrogen in the soil. We just use it on top, and we don't put it right up against the plants, but we put it in the rows where you walk. But it makes it really nice, so then you're not walking in mud. As far as fertilizing, you need to fertilize your vegetable gardens. And we recommend that you use a granular fertilizer, like the Fertilome tomato and vegetable, or there's another one that's just Gardener Special. That's just a good balanced fertilizer. And you always want to fertilize at the time that you plant. I recommend planting and then side dressing versus rototilling it in, because your fertilizer gets too deep. But at this point, go back and side dress with a little bit more fertilizer. We also carry an organic fertilizer, and sometimes I use that in my raised beds. But and if you haven't fertilized since you planted, I would recommend that you go back and side dress and just follow the package directions. It tells you to use it every 4 to 6 weeks, because they need to have some food. So this is what's happening in our garden. And if you have questions, by all means, we always want you to come to Pinehurst and ask your questions, and we'll help you the very best we can. We don't know everything, but we'll try and find out for you if we don't. But a lot of this stuff is just general. We don't need to know exactly which worm or caterpillar is chewing, and we can show you what to use and your choices, if you want to be organic or not, or maybe just reassure you that if they're not totally devouring your stuff, that it's still okay. So that's what's happening in the garden at my house. Thanks.